Welcome, everybody. My name is Adam Petrikoff. I'm the managing partner of VR Mergers and Acquisitions and Business Brokers here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm super excited to have a fantastic guest for a variety of reasons. First of all, Brandy is a dear friend and a great attorney and someone that I've worked on deals with. And I know she has a lot of satisfied clients out there. But sometimes I like to challenge Brandy and have her work from 10,000 feet. And so we've invited her today to talk a little bit about, as an attorney, wanting to be your advocate. These are some of the topics that you should be thinking about before you sell your business. We're not here to tell you need to sell next week or next month, but you need to be thinking about these things months or years in advance. And so, Brandy, welcome. You want to give a brief little synopsis about yourself for those who may not know you?
Thank you so much, Adam. It's an honor and a pleasure to be doing this with you today. And I'm excited to talk to a lot of folks and hopefully help educate, as I know you love to do. I have been an M&A attorney for over 21 years, first with Big Law, and then about 9 years ago, helped to start this law firm. And so we have a great group here. But M&A and helping folks sell and buy businesses is sort of my sweet spot. So I love it. It's always a challenge, but I love helping to educate other people so we can keep doing it better the next time around.
And the reason why Brandy and I get along so well is we're very direct. We don't mess around. So let's jump in. First things first, we do have an attorney here, so let's make our disclaimer. Brandy's not giving any legal advice. These are concepts to be aware of, but these concepts apply to the small business doing a few $100,000 to the big business doing $50 or $100 million. These concepts apply to everybody.
I've trained you well, Adam.
We just finished. Yes, thank you. We just finished the Super Bowl, and Brandy decided to tailor this with a football theme. So super excited about that. We're calling it Playing for Keeps, and these are the concepts that we want to jump into. So Brandy, I'll let you get started here.
Okay, well, and I was not partial to any of my teams, either the Steelers or the Gamecocks, Panthers in third. I know there's probably some haters out there now. But if for anyone who's played on any team, not just a football team, and I do love football, so this was easy for me. It's important. A team is called a team for a reason. It is not I, it is we. And so it is important to make sure that you know you have a very good team and that you all are on the same page. And so if you're thinking about an exit, no matter how early you start thinking about it, and I think Adam and I would both tell you it's never too early. In fact, some of the best business owners that I know and clients, the day that you start your business is the day you should start thinking about the exit. And I think Adam would agree. I know him well enough. So that's when you should start thinking about who is your team all the way through exit. And that includes a CPA. I will tell you, we lawyers, we love to have our CPA friends beside of us. As I always say, I know enough tax to be dangerous and spot the issues. And they're very efficient and great to work with. You've got to make sure from day one, you've got to think about it as you grow or the things that you need, if you need financing, but particularly, when you're exiting, you need to understand what's going on with your finances. And if there's financing you've got to take care of before you exit or as you exit, you've got to know there are penalties related to that. Just having a great commercial banker and having that relationship long-term is fabulous. I don't like to toot my own horn, but you got to have us. We always say, I've said this several times with Adam, you love to hate us until you need us, and then you want a great one. And you want someone who specifically does business law. And when you're exiting, you don't want them just to be a general commercial lawyer, you are a business lawyer. You want them to have a great deal of M&A experience, because if they don't, I think Adam agrees with this wholeheartedly. If they don't have M&A experience, on either side, and you want your other, if you're selling, you want the buyer to have a very educated M&A attorney on the other side, because if not, you end up paying your lawyer to do both sides work, and it also drags the deal out, which you don't want to do because time kills deals. Of course, we cannot do it without Adam. Folks like Adam, business brokers, investment bankers. A lot of folks talk about their commission style fees and how they're so expensive. I would tell you the great ones like Adam are worth their weight in gold, because they need to put the right people together. You're not going to waste time on deals that aren't going to come through. You're not going to waste time on due diligence and pitching to people that really aren't interested in your business. So they are crucial to getting the right deal for you. And we love to work with them. And there are things that we can do, but it's not efficient for us to do it. And they can do it so much better on the business side. And then, of course, you should always be thinking about your finances in a different way for you personally and what you need to exit. So when you're thinking about, you've got the commercial banker helping you think about what you need from a business perspective, financing or savings or what have you, you need a wealth advisor to help you be planning and doing that and packing all that away. And then be ready when you exit. It happens quicker than you know it, and you can deploy those resources and the proceeds to the best fit for you in your future.
And I would just add here, as part of the team leading the transaction, either myself or a fellow investment banker, our job is to bring everyone together, and we all stay in our own lanes, but someone's got to quarterback it, and that it's something. It's a unique process. You can't describe it until you've been through it, but having a good team is great. Brandy has asked me to play this video. Let's see if I can do this. This might be a new one.
I like to keep you on your toes, Adam.
It said control. Is it playing? Does anyone see it?
It is not playing. We can move on. It's
went into another.
Okay. Don't worry about that.
We're gonna try that. Yeah, didn't work. So let's just move on. Technical difficulties. 101. Okay. So let's get caught up here. So let's move on to the next page here. Cleaning house. Brandy, what do you mean by that? When you say cleaning house, what are you saying?
I think this is the thing, even as a business owner myself, that sort of makes us all a little nauseous when you talk about it. But so it's better if you know about it ahead of time and you can do it all along the way. You know, I have so many clients, and I know, Adam, you've had the same experience, that come to you a couple of years, a few months before they're going to sell, and they're embarrassed because they're like, well, we had this issue. What I can say is starting and acknowledging it and doing what you can as you can is the best, but it's obviously best to start on these things before as soon as you form your entity and start your business. But this is talking about cleaning your house, all the parts of your business. For example, making sure your finances and financial statements are in order, making sure your contracts are, what you think they are. Because a lot of times we get clients in and the due diligence, the buyer wants to see all the customer contracts. And they say, well, we have this form. And then the buyer says, are they all the same? And our client says, they're supposed to be. And we're like, well, now we got to share them all. And of course, there's 10 different versions. Just really, it's painful to think about sometimes, particularly if you get years into the business. So it's better to go as you can. I always tell clients, don't ever be embarrassed to tell us anything. Everybody, all business owners are doing the best they can at that time. And so just noting that, but just know that a buyer is going to come in and really, like a mechanic, look under the hood of your car. And it is going to feel extremely uncomfortable. And you're going to feel like you've been asked the same question about the same financial statements or tax issues or contract issues about 4 different times, because they have a different vendor doing their due diligence for each area, if you will. So they'll have an accounting group, a large accounting firm or a small accounting firm doing their accounting. Then they'll have a group of lawyers looking at the legal and corporate stuff. Sometimes those overlap. And so you feel like, I'm getting asked all these questions. So that's the due diligence before the deal gets started. So it's good to have this clean as you can. But business owners like to save money for the bottom line. And so they don't like to spend the money on these and let these go until it's needed. But I will tell you, it's a much less costly process if you can do it as you go. And even if you're, for example, today, you're like, I've been in business 5 or 10 years. I'm thinking about selling in a year to 3 years. I can just wait. It would be better if you just take a portion of your business, an area, and just make sure that it's clean and do that a little bit at a time. I promise that will cost you a lot less in the end. So, and just know if there are errors, you want to know about them ahead of time so you can let your attorneys know, and let the attorneys and Adam handle it with the other side and package that in a way that doesn't harm the deal or harm what you get from or receive from the deal, the proceeds.
And I would just add, just because you tell us doesn't mean we're going to tell the other side. But we can make sure we don't say something that would be incorrect or inappropriate or leading them down a rabbit hole. So you got to come clean, not only clean up your information, but you got to come clean and tell your team, your advisors, it's okay. No business is perfect. We all have, imperfections, and you just got to be honest with your team. The buyers are going to find it. So you'd rather tell them and control the narrative than them finding it and then lose some trust in you for hiding something.
That's right. And another point to that, Adam, is some of it can be corrected. So otherwise, if you don't clean it and you just provide a lot of sellers don't like to get us lawyers involved in the due diligence because we're cost. We get that.
Yep.
And so they just throw a bunch of due diligence to the other side. Well, there are a lot of times tax, financial, legal issues that we can correct before you even send it over. So that's another reason. But yes, be honest, and you just need to tell your team everything.
So jump in here. This is self-serving, so I'm going to let you say this, Brandy.
Okay. So one of the most asked questions I get as a business attorney, not as a business owner, but as a business attorney and M&A attorney, is if you could tell a seller one thing, what would you tell them? And so I think they usually expect me to talk about what we just talked about or some legal document or structure. It's not that. The thing that my team sees over and over and over is owners getting worn out, numbers dropping, and then deals falling through or getting retraded or renegotiated because they got exhausted and they tried to keep it too confidential. So when people ask me, what is the number one thing you would tell an owner that's about to sell? What's the best advice? I would say, you make a decision as the owner. Are you going to lead the deal or lead the company? Because it is almost impossible to do both. You need to find your right-hand person who is super confidential that can do the other one. So if you want to lead the deal and be involved with the Adams and me and the CPAs and what have you, then you find somebody in that business that knows that business as well as you do, or as close to you as possible, and you let them run the business reporting to you. Because doing a deal and doing an exit is almost like having a second full-time job. And so you need to have your best game on. You need to have your head in the game. You need to be working closely with your advisor so you can make the best decisions and get the best results for yourself and your employees and your family in the end.
Couldn't have said it better. One of the things we get asked all the time is, oh, can you sell how quickly can you sell my business? And I tell people, look, right now it's a pretty good time to sell, but the process still takes time and people get tired. Brandy, from your position, talk about deal fatigue.
Yeah, so just kind of going along with what we were just talking about. So too often we get sellers that come in with, Adam, and they've done the pitches. They've met so many buyers. They've had to do the presentations on their company, and they found the buyer and they've executed the LOI or the IOI or maybe even a small memorandum. And they're ready to go. And they're just this sigh of relief, like, we're done. And I have to give them the bad news. Hold on. You're far from done. The deal is not done until it is signed and money has been wired. And they just look at us, or you can hear them if they're on the phone with my team. You can just hear this huge sigh, and they're like, how are we going to do this? And what's not so fun to tell them is, this is the hardest part of the deal. You got to tell us what you want. We got to. He goes, well, he or she'll say, it's just one document. No, it can be anywhere from 5 to 20 documents, and it might be a consulting agreement for money that you're getting for the next 3 years, or an employment agreement. And so we really need you to be at your best. So sometimes I'll say, go take a vacation, a weekend, and come back refreshed and get somebody. And this is when I have to say, get somebody internally that's going to do the other part. You tell us which part you want. So it's a real thing, deal fatigue. Even we lawyers can get it if the same deal drags out too long. And it itself, if folks on the deal have deal fatigue, it can actually drag the deal as well. So it's really important to protect against that.
Yeah, we try to educate our clients that in most cases, there's going to be a letter of intent And they sort of want to get excited. And I said, no, no, no. There's a letter of intent. Then there's the purchase agreement, the consulting, the non-compete, and all the other things. So we just get through round one with a letter of intent, but there's more rounds to come. And they look at me like I have 7 eyes. But I try to tell them that before we go to market. I remind them of that once we get a letter of intent. And then I say, look, we're just getting started here. And but we're going to go as fast as we can. But deal fatigue is real. If you know about it, you can be prepared and have a strategy.
My favorite response when we have to give them the bad news, Adam, is they say, well, you guys just do that. You guys just do the document. We're
sure.
like,
no
we're
problem.
happy to draft them, but we're not making decisions for you.
Correct.
So yeah, so the next part is you got to keep your head in the game, right? It's part of it's the next step after saying you can't have deal fatigue. So if you do, go get some rest and come back. And we really got to talk about, particularly with Adam, our business brokers, investment bankers, they are really leading the business deal. They know the parties, they know both parties. So that is crucial to keeping the deal together and moving forward. And they have to beat up on us a lot. Sometimes they have to tell us lawyers to stop being lawyers and get it done.
We do. And I just want to make just a general announcement. Brandy's being nice and always mentioning Adam, but there are other good business brokers, investment bankers out there. And I want, if you hear nothing else, if you don't use me, I understand. You have to have someone on your team. You have to have an experienced advisor, an investment banker, a business broker that knows what they're doing, that will help you get through the myriad of different relationships and advisors and buyers, because you will not be able to run your company. I assure you, it will wear you down. So I just want to make that sort of public service announcement. Many people don't use an investment banker or a business broker, and it's a mistake.
It is. We don't even necessarily align. I always give the clients, Adam's heard me give the client the speeches. They want to get the deal done. Our job is to protect our client's best interests. So we don't always agree, but we all, with folks like Adam, we always have a great relationship, and they understand sometimes we're not going to agree, but we generally get it done. If it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done for the right reasons.
Talk a little bit about the teammates. My general comment about this is, don't be afraid to tell your lawyer your bad secrets. Brandy and I worked on a deal, and the client decided about 48 hours before, after I'd asked the client many times, is there anything you haven't told me? The client said, let's meet in Brandy's office. I got one more thing to tell you, literally a couple days before the deal was going to close. Please tell your advisors so they know what's going on. Be open, be honest. Again, Brandy's not going to necessarily disclose it, but she needs to know things so she can work around it or integrate that news. What else do you want to share about that, Brandy?
Well, and the sooner the better, which is the whole point of this whole presentation, right? The sooner you can do any of this stuff, the better. It's not meant to be overwhelming. Take them in bite-sized pieces, but if you know something's going on, the sooner the better. I mean, some of my favorite, I was telling Adam about one the other day, we were going through some due diligence, some employee benefits type due diligence with a big firm on the other side. And one of my partners on a call started asking our client, hey, do you do any testing with your benefits, your 401k and what have you, your medical? And he said, well, I don't know. I think so. And we're like, we'll figure it out. And then my partner asked him, so how much do you contribute to the employees and their families versus, and how much do you do for you and your executive team? And good old guy from southeastern part of the country. And he said, well, we give our employees 50%. And for me and the guys, we pay 100% plus 100% of our families. And those of you that don't know and don't do a lot of deals may not know that that's a huge violation of federal law. You can't be partial to the executives and the owners. And so my partner, after he fell out of his chair, came back on calmly and said, we're going to have to fix that. And they ended up having to reimburse. But it was good that we knew that before we could deliver that in an appropriate way. We said, we're on it. So it looked like our client had it together as well. So I think the sooner the better. And I will say this, Adam, what you just said earlier, Adam, that's true of all those advisors. If it's not us, just make sure it's a great one. and make sure even the accountants, even the financial advisors, make sure they have M&A experience and they've been through some of that with their clients. And also, I say this for me, if it's not working, end it and get a great one, because it has to work. It's a personality and it's an experience. It's important.
100%. And I apologize before I haven't stated. If you have a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A or in the chat. I apologize. I meant to do that at the beginning. So if you want to ask Brandy a question, please put it in there, and we will get that question addressed. Okay, go big or go home. Talk to me about this, Brandy.
So it's frustrating, and I know you've experienced, because we've experienced this together, Adam. It is frustrating when clients hire you, but sort of hamstring you and say, only look at certain things, only look at this document or this part of this document, or they don't want to review. You tell them to review, and you can tell by going through the reps and warranties with them, they haven't reviewed. That's all. They think they're saving money, but that's really actually probably more of a waste of money. Our teams and folks like our teams understand that we're a call center for these deals. It's in our best interest to be efficient, but it's also in your best interest that we do it all and review it. And so it's a lot of legalese. And as I said, when we were talking about deal fatigue, it's tedious, it's meticulous. We've had so many clients say, we read it, we started reading it, and it put us to sleep, and we had to get back up in the morning and read it. But you really want someone who's going to take the time to at least have you read it and then summarize it with you. They don't have to read it word for word, but summarize. I will tell you that our team, every client that we have as a seller, we at some point before they sign, we spend and we allocate 4 hours to go through the reps and warranties. And they always say, yeah, that's fine, but we've told you everything, we've provided everything. And there's not been one of those 4-hour sessions that we haven't sat down around a conference, and we ask them to do it in person so that nobody's distracted by their computers and their iPhones or whatever. And our team splits up going through the reps and warranties so they don't get tired of one voice. And we don't have one of those that we haven't come out of that with either at a minimum one thing, but a lot of times 4 to 6 things that are crucial from a diligence. So, and we always explain it this way: if the reps and warranties are wrong, that's where you can lose some of your proceeds post-closing. And our job is to allow you to keep as much of those proceeds as possible. So make sure that you're not hamstringing your advisors, any of them. Let them work together and let them work in your best interest, and review everything with you and make sure you understand everything.
Well, we have a great question, and I want to preface this by saying, selling a business has some stress involved in it.
Just a little bit.
It's a lot of emotions. It's about money. It's about family. It's about relationships. This question comes in, and I'm just laughing. Brandy, the question is: do you find that internal, perhaps family relationship issues within the business or within the family you're working with can interfere in your work? If so, how have you dealt with it?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a whole nother webinar. But if let's pretend 2 brothers or two brothers and a sister are selling the business, there's 3 of them. You certainly get into the family dynamics in the midst of your conversations with your clients, whether you want to or not. How have you dealt with that?
So first and foremost, I think that's where folks like you, Adam, come in to play a big part, because you, first of all, you don't necessarily have the conflicts. We have to, obviously, as attorneys, be careful with conflicts. So if we think there's going to be a big problem, we have to represent one party or not. But generally, I find that just hitting the nail on the head, really talking about it and bringing the pink elephant out in the room is usually the best way to handle it. I will tell you, our team in the last 2 years or so has done several family succession, and one that was the most interesting was a second generation transferring to a third generation. But it wasn't just the third generation. They also had 4 other employees that came along with that third generation. So you want to talk about, and those employees had been around longer than the third generation. So you want to talk about something that could have been really sticky. But for the most part, and kudos to the second generation, they were very open and honest and willing to call the plays and to state what the issues were and have big conferences out in the open. And so I think their honesty allowed the folks buying to be honest with the seller, the second generation, as well as the other folks. So I really think if you got somebody, sorry, there's some noise in my background. The other issue is husband and wife. We see that a lot. We see a lot of sellers who have had their businesses for 20 plus years come in and doing a huge exit, and they go and set up a very complicated estate plan, including their spouse, transferring business interest into trust, only to find out that the spouse post-closing or when the deal in the middle of the deal is thinking about a divorce. I think as a business owner, you've got to be the business owner and think of the business as yours if you are the owner at that point.
Yeah, and so for those folks who are involved in a family business, a little bit of history. I grew up I was fourth generation family business. We sold in 1998 in the textile industry, but these family issues are real, and we have advisors that we refer people out to that deal specifically in family issues, but the same thing, family issues, partnership issues. If you've got tension in relationships, it may rise during the transaction. So I would encourage you to try to address those issues just like your other due diligence issues prior to going to market, because there will be stress and strain on those relationships. Whoops.
The other point, Adam, you brought up a great point about that, not just family, but partnership, because a lot of times friends go into business together. We have one favorite client of ours we adore, he and his team, but the first large deal we did, he had his partnership on a napkin. Literally, that was not out of a law school book, I promise. And he stuck to his word. They were supposed to be a lot larger percentage owners than they were on paper. He ended up giving away part of his tax exemption or gifting exemption to give them what they needed. And the next time he came around, the third or fourth time, he said, "Oh, we got all these handled. There's going to be no problems." But they commingled some other real estate that they owned together. So just be clear and try to keep the business to business and keep other stuff out of the business, and document everything and have that cleaned up.
Yeah, let me just touch on the commingling here, because a lot of people who have been in business in the greater Charlotte area where we are own the real estate, and the real estate obviously over the last 10, 20 years has really risen significantly in value. And for those in unique parts of the city, it's a huge asset now. And we've seen plenty of financials where the real estate, they bought it 20 years ago and it was in with the business. You got to get that out. You got to get these things separated, separate tax returns, separate entities. That's a great example of something you got to get done before you go to market.
That's right. And cleaning up your finance, speaking of stuff that commingled, one of the slides we talked about earlier about cleaning up and organizing, get all the stuff that you're flowing through the business financially as an owner that may not be exactly a business expense, get that cleaned up and out.
Can you say that again, Brandy? Can you say that one more time? We tell people, a year or two before, start cleaning up your business, and it's just the right thing to do. You want to show as profitable as the business can be, so there's no ambiguity as to the cash flow of the business for the lenders that are looking at it as well as the buyers. So let's talk about sticking to the game plan, Brandy.
Yeah, so you've constantly got to be, again, this part of the deal, everybody thinks it's done once they sign the LOI, but it is really strategic going forward, because there's a lot of details and meat to the purchase agreement that aren't in the LOI. And so you really need to have a strategy. You're going to see in that first draft, usually a lot of things come up. And as you go along and the buyer finishes their due diligence, you're going to see a lot of things that they've seen that they want to address that nobody knew about or need to be addressed in the LOI. And so you need to constantly be working with your advisors and your team on the game plan. And it's going to change, and you've got to know when to fold them, as Kenny says, and when to hold them, right? You've got to know what you're willing to give up. And my favorite, and I know, Adam, you've heard this 100 times, my favorite is, I care about my people. I care about my people. I got to take care of my people. And undoubtedly, every business owner does. but everybody's got their price. And so when they say that to me, and we've got some key points that the buyers are wanting us to give on them, okay, are you willing to give up some proceeds to protect these employment agreements at this level? Usually we get some, pullback a little bit. So you've just got to know what you got to have, what would be nice to have, and then okay, that's just the cherry on top if you get it, but you could give it away. And you've got to be constantly communicating that with your whole team, not just the lawyers, because the Adams of the world they're in and they're talking to the other business side, and they can make things happen a little more quickly than we can, and more efficiently. Anything else, Adam, from that perspective?
Couldn't agree with you. No, you nailed it. I was right as it is.
Yeah. So, there's always those interesting points in the football game. You got to know when to go for the goal or take a step back. And so keep your negotiations verbal. If you send something in an email, and undoubtedly we'll get the sellers that say, well, I'm just going to send an email to them. Well, be careful and make sure you're willing to stick to that email, because that's going to come up just like the letter of intent, LOI. If you go back on it, it's going to be considered a retrade, and you're going to have to give up something else that you maybe don't want to give up. And I always say, make sure, again, we were talking about that 4-hour conference meeting to go over reps and warranties. And a lot of sellers just like, this is legal mumbo jumbo. Just, it sounds good. It looks good. And we have to explain to them, please understand, if these aren't accurate, they can come back at you. The buyer can come back after the seller in varying ways and for varying amounts if these things aren't true. And so I always make the point at the beginning of representation that just because it closes and just because you have your money, it doesn't mean that's your money for forever. So the goal is to make sure that everything's correct and you get to keep that money. Now, there are times to walk away. The best, and over my career, I've only had 3 deals not close. So, and they didn't close for the right reasons. But sometimes you have to be willing to walk away. That is the best client that understands they want to sell, they really want to sell, but they're not going to give away the farm. And in communicating and standing behind their team, behind Adam, behind Brandy, behind the CPAs, because if you say one thing and we go and deliver a message and then you cave or do something else with the other business side, with the buyer, then they don't take any of us seriously. But there are times when the owner needs to say, I can't do that. I had one owner, I was telling Adam, and this does not happen often, I don't recommend it. I had one owner that we can continue to represent through multiple closings and businesses, and he walked away from his biggest exit ever 3 times, weeks and months apart, and they were all for his employees, his competitors who had helped him out but were friends, and tax reasons for other people, not for himself, and he got exactly what he wanted. So there's a balance. It doesn't always happen like that, and I don't want to create the image that it does. You normally have to give up something to get some things, but you got to know what you're doing and know when to go for things and when to walk away. You want to follow the post-closing checklist. Again, a lot of people think when the money's paid, it's done and over. Not only can they come back for breaches of the reps and warranties, but there are things that generally have to happen post-closing: changing corporate names, releasing liens, paying things off, providing additional information. There are all sorts of things. Make sure that your lawyers and you and your whole team know what those are and have calendared those and are ready to go. And then, of course, go talk. Your financial advisor should help you implement any of that pre-planning you've done. And then, of course, keep everybody in the loop of any claims, which hopefully they don't. I haven't had very often at all, but you got to be ready to go if they do have any post-closing claims on any of the reps and warranties.
So, Brandy, you're telling me that someone may come back to me after the deal?
Oh, yes.
That can be news to a seller as well. So we have another question in here as we are going into the Q&A section. Someone is asking, who do I talk to first, and how, of the advisors I think they're referring to, and how long in advance should I reach out? Brandy, I'll let you take that, and then I'll follow up with anything I want to add.
That is a great question. It's our favorite, right, Adam? I would say, I think Adam, but I'll let you speak for yourself. It's never too early to talk to any of the advisors to get cleaned up like we were talking about early on in the presentation. I will say, I'm proud to say that the lawyers are usually the last to the table because we have a reputation for being a cost center. Although I would say if you bring us in early, hopefully we can reduce a ton of that cost. I think making sure your CPA, seriously, all kidding aside, making sure your CPA, generally you see them first in, and your financial advisors, the money's got to be right. I mean, because you got to be having a profitable business. Hopefully you're talking to a lawyer, a business lawyer, fairly early on to make sure your entity's set up correctly and you're running things correctly. A lot of people want to approach Adam, like he said, 3 months, 6 months before the deal and want to close immediately. And that is not how it happens. It is better if you have at least a year, but the more long-term relationship you have with Adam or another advisor in his industry, the better, because they can be looking out and they can help you. They can help tell you what you need to clean up, just like we can.
Yeah, and I would just ask, or my comment would be, probably many people are selling because for financial reasons. So I usually like to say, have you talked this over with your spouse or your family? Have you talked with a financial advisor? What are you going to do? How are you going to have that cash flow that you need to live your post-business life? If you haven't done that, you're not ready. You need to understand, okay, I need X to get to live my life. Well, between your existing assets and what you're going to get, the proceeds after tax, then you can start to have that discussion. But you got to have a good CPA, you got to have a good attorney, you got to have someone you're talking to financially, and again, an investment banker or a business broker. You need someone to sort of shepherd in and be the quarterback of all these advisors. We got one other question here, and that is, Brandy, is it true or false? I always hear that attorneys are deal killers, but I don't think that's true. So take the opportunity to clear that up for us.
Well, that is a reputation of attorneys in general. I would hope that is definitely not my reputation or our team's reputation. I love to close deals. I don't think that is true generally, but it is important to have business and M&A attorneys who understand businesses and get outside the four corners of the contracts. Unfortunately, we're trained to find problems, not solutions. And so make sure that you have an attorney, a business attorney that likes and loves numbers, preferably, and understands what the business issues are for you. Any attorney, any contract, any good contract attorney can redline anything. And Adam's heard me say this. What my job is to tell you what the legal consequences of all the redlining from the other side, or the markup or revisions are from the other side, or how they've drafted it. I can tell you what's in the market from a legal perspective, but we see a sliver compared to what Adam and the other advisors see. So I always recommend talking to them and working in conjunction with them. And then as a business owner, I think that's what folks appreciate about some of us in the industry is we're not just lawyers or business brokers or CPAs. We also own and run our own businesses. And so we're looking at it from that perspective. We all have our own lawyers and CPAs, and so we know what to expect from them. And so making sure that they're looking at it, I'm going to tell you those three views. I'm going to tell you legal consequences. I'm going to tell you what the market is. And I'm going to tell you as a business owner, after having worked with you for however long, what I think is important. But it's up to you to tell me which of those are not or which are. And then I need to listen to you. I need to not go fight just to be right on certain legal provisions like indemnity. I need to listen to you. And so I hope that's what everybody does, but I would say we all love closing deals, not hindering them.
Yeah, and I would just say a good attorney is worth their weight in gold. And it is worth every penny. We got a more detailed, very specific question, but a really good question. It says, you mentioned retrading. When might retrading occur? And to what degree are buyers legally obligated to close based upon pricing agreed to in the LOI?
Great question. First of all, most LOIs, although we've seen some variations on this, but most letter of intent should not be legally binding. That gets confusing for clients because we always have the sellers say, oh, but when they try to the buyer tries to retrade the numbers, we had an LOI, and I have to say, remember, it's not binding. So generally LOIs are only binding with regard to exclusivity, confidentiality, and kind of legal disputes. So those things aren't binding, but at the same time, they're kind of a gentleman or gentlewoman's agreement between the parties. And so if you get into the purchase agreement and start talking about increasing price from a seller perspective, decreasing price, you better have a darn good reason, or the other side is going to be really upset and consider it a business retrade, and you're going to have to give it something else. Generally, we see a lot of retrade, Adam, and please jump in, on the numbers. And it's generally because they haven't started their due diligence or haven't really gotten into the due diligence on the numbers when we sign the LOI. And so they get in and they find things. It can be add backs. It can be all kinds of things you running through the business that were personal. Could be potential tax litigation issues that they want indemnification for. So they start saying they're going to hold stuff back, generally around the numbers, sometimes around the people. But, and then again, the indemnification, what they're going to hold money back in escrow for, if they find something specific, that's where we see a lot of that.
I would just add on the retrading. Most of the retrading is potentially self-inflicted. And what I mean by that is, going back to Brandy's comment earlier, is if you're running the business and trying to run the process, you're probably doing neither effectively. So you got to figure out what you're doing. If you really think you're going to have a great year, then do everything you can to focus on the business. Rely on your advisors to run this process so the retrading does not come up. The other time it comes up is when there's financial issues or shortfalls, you lose a major customer. I mean, business happens. Things happen all the time. They're going to find that out in due diligence, and you got to make the decision. Do you, as Brandy says, do you punt, or do you go for the touchdown? What do you want to do? Is it worth taking it off the market and coming back 2 years later after you've solved that customer issue or whatever the issue is that's forcing them to want to retrade? Those are personal decisions, but it typically is caused by some type of financial performance that has not met what the buyer was expecting. And again, if you're spending the time and energy sort of doing some pre-diligence on your own business before, you're going to be prepared, and you're going to see what these opportunities are for retrading. I'm going to give one last opportunity for anyone to ask a question, where I try to be respectful of people's time. I really appreciate, we've had a nice crowd today, and I know everyone's got Zoom fatigue, but really appreciate people hanging in there. And Brandy, it's a testament to you and your following out there for all the people that are joining here. And this is great advice that Brandy has been giving. I don't see any more questions. I just want to remind you guys, if you are thinking of, if you're contemplating your exit, whether it's now or in the future, work with your advisors, work with your CPA years in advance, talk with your attorney, talk with your investment banker or your business broker, talk with your financial advisor. We, as professional advisors, are here to help you have the best outcome we can. And the sooner you think about these issues, the more optimal outcome you're gonna have for you and your family, which is the goal. Brandy, this has been fun. This has been great. Really enjoy it. Thank you very much. And for those of you, my pleasure. We will make this video available to those who attended. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Brandy or myself. Use that Google machine. Just reach out, find us. We'd love to talk to you. We're here to help you. And thank you all very much for your time. Thanks, Brandy.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.